It was just another regular morning at Westfield High, a well-known school in Austin, Texas. The hallways were full of students, some chatting in groups, others rushing to finish last-minute assignments. But for Jacob Miller, the day started with an uneasy feeling. Jacob was different from the other students. While most of them came from families of doctors, lawyers, and business owners, he was the grandson of a farmer. His hands were rough from morning chores before school, and his boots still carried the faint smell of soil. He was a quiet boy, but his silence often made him a target for teasing. As Jacob entered the classroom, he noticed the disapproving look from Miss Whitmore, his history teacher. She had high expectations, strict rules, and a sense of superiority that made even the most confident students nervous. The lesson began, but Jacob struggled to focus. Waking up at dawn to help on the farm had left him exhausted, and his tired mind couldn't keep up when Miss Whitmore called on him to answer a question about the Civil War. He hesitated, trying to gather his thoughts. "Mr. Miller," she said sharply. Crossing her arms, "If you paid more attention in class, instead of whatever you do out there in the fields, maybe you wouldn't embarrass yourself." The class chuckled. Jacob felt a lump in his throat but stayed quiet. "Honestly, I don't see the point in wasting time on students who clearly aren't meant for academics," she continued. "Maybe you should stick to what you know best, feeding pigs and plowing dirt." The room went silent. Even those who had laughed earlier looked uncomfortable. Jacob stood up, gripping his desk tightly. His knuckles turned white, but his voice was steady. "I may not be as smart as the others," he said, "but that doesn't mean I don't deserve respect." Miss Whitmore smirked. "Then prove it otherwise. Leave my classroom." The words hurt, but Jacob didn't argue. Instead, he gathered his things and walked out, his heart pounding. He had never felt so embarrassed the next morning as the sun cast a golden glow over the school. Something unusual caught the students' attention. The steady sound of helicopter blades filled the air. Teachers and students rushed outside, their eyes widening in shock as a sleek, black helicopter landed on the school's football field. A tall, confident man in a sharp suit stepped out. James Miller, Jacob's grandfather. He wasn't just a farmer, he was one of the most well-known figures in Texas. Famous for his massive farmland and successful agribusiness, he had transformed sustainable farming, supplying organic produce to top restaurants and major grocery stores across the country. Jacob followed behind him, standing taller, his face unreadable as they entered the school. A heavy silence filled the hall. Even Miss Whitmore, who was rarely shaken, looked visibly nervous. "I understand there was a problem with my grandson in your class yesterday," Mr. Miller said, his deep voice echoing through the corridor. Miss Whitmore blinked quickly. "Mr. Miller, I assure you I treat all my students equally." "Is that so?" he interrupted, pulling a check from his coat pocket. "Because this school receives a lot of funding from the Miller Foundation, I built the very science lab you take so much pride in, and I sponsor the history program you run. Yet you chose to humiliate my grandson because of his background." Miss Whitmore's face turned pale. "I raised Jacob to understand that hard work is something to be proud of." He continued, his eyes locked onto hers. "Maybe you should educate yourself on that instead of looking down on the people who put food on your table." Whispers spread through the crowd. Jacob, who had stayed silent until now, stepped forward. "I don't need special treatment," he said. "I just want to be treated with respect like everyone else." Miss Whitmore nodded stiffly, unable to meet his eyes. "I understand. I apologize." Jacob, a pleased smile appeared on Mr. Miller's face. "Good, because respect isn't given based on money or status. It's earned through honesty and hard work." And my grandson has both. The students burst into cheers, with many nodding at Jacob and admiration. From that day on, he walked through the school halls with confidence, not because of his grandfather's influence, but because he had proven that dignity wasn't measured by wealth or grades, but by how a person carried themselves in difficult times. As for Miss Whitmore, she never looked down on another student again. If you've read this far, comment respect first below. And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories.